Hello and welcome to another video of my C# basics tutorial series. In this video we will get to learn what classes are. Actually, we've already used a class as of now. This right here, we can see here it says class. Here we have a class called game. If you want to understand how a class works, we will first create our own class. So here we are in Godot. I like to create a new folder called scripts. It's kind of what I like to call it. So now that the scripts folder is created, let's insert a new file and call it person.cs. And in here you can say class person, and we created our class. We have to discuss what a class is. A class is like the fundamental building block of so-called object-oriented programming. So for example, when you have a video game and you have, let's say, a player, coins, blocks, all of these are objects. So when a player collects a coin, the player object interacts with the coin object. What makes them kind of unique is that you can have like a million coins on the screen and they all behave similarly, and they also each store different values in them. So if you have an enemy, you can create 5 of them, but each of them has a variable which tracks their health. And this is what classes are. They are basically templates for objects which we can create in our games or in our programs. So knowing this, we know that every person has a name. We create a string name. And we also know that every person has an age. You can say integer age. What we now also have to do is we have to add a public so that this can be accessed from outside. So let's create our person. You can say person p equals new person. And right here we created our person. We now have to assign the attributes to this person like this. So his name is John and his age is 54. And these fields from the class person are now unique to this object. We can now say print out the name is years old. John is 54 years old. So we now stored values as person p. We could also, of course, call it person. What makes objects so great, or what makes classes so great, is that we can instantiate multiple objects. Person p2 equals new person, and we give it a name of Lauch, and his age is 11. Of course, we have to say p2 for this, as we assign these values to p2. But what if you forget to assign these values? Well, then these variables are not gonna have any values and we'll get errors without end. So one solution would be to assign a default value so that we won't get any errors. But you can also create a so-called constructor. It's written like this: public, so that it is accessible, and person, the name of the class, and it is kind of structured like a method, like we learned in the last episode. So just like with methods, we can have parameters like string name. It's quite important that it is lower camel case, so written like this. And we have integer age. So right here we can say name equals name and age equals age. Note that these are uppercase and these are lowercase. It is quite important. It's just simply convention that everything that's public has an uppercase name, and everything that's like in a private scope like this has to have a lowercase name to avoid confusion. if there was any confusion, we could write this dot name equals name or something like that. So we now want to initialize this person. We have to include these parameters right here. So he's called John and is 54 years old. And he's called Lauch and is 11 years old. And these lines can of course be removed. So now our class is nothing more but a data store, so to say. But we also want our class to do something with this data, to actually act like an object. So for this we can create methods, of course. And these of course have also have to be public for now. And right here we write the data type that we want to return. We don't want to return away a data type because we want to print info, print the information out. GD, which doesn't work because we have to declare that we are using Godot, and then we can say gd.print and say name plus is age years old. And now what we can do here is oh, I made a major mistake. Oh, not major, but this was lowercase, and please don't do the same mistake as well. It's very important that you at least somewhat follow the convention. So everything that's public and accessible from outside has to be an uppercase. So print info. And p2.print info. John is 54 years old and Lauch is 11 years old. What if we want to have a method which is not accessible from outside? I know in the beginning it might seem confusing, why would you do that? But there are certain use cases. For example, we could have a private string get info method. And right here, this is lowercase. So a lower camel case. So that we can call get info right here. Now if you want to head into game, we can still use print info, but we cannot use get info. This method is inaccessible to us. Let's recap what we learned today. We learned what a class is, and that a class can be described as a template for multiple objects that are created in our games. These classes have public and they have private fields. Methods can have fields which are variables, and they can have methods which can be called from outside, which accessibility can also be modified. In the next episode, this is going to be a rather short one, we will learn how inheritance works with classes. I know the speed might be a little high, but I want to get you to actually do some game dev so that you can learn by practice. So in the next episode, we'll get to learn how inheritance works.